SW, thank you for the $5 super chat. It says, Bar, keep it 100. What was your original reaction when this chapter basically confirmed that Sarada and Mitsuki at some point are Asuski level?
It made sense. It made absolute sense. Now, it's not necessarily me. Well, it's not necessarily a question of if I like it or not. I always thought that they'd eventually become up there in the upper echelons, and I thought that if they didn't necessarily become up there in the upper echelons, it would mimic what Naruto Shippuden did, where at the end of the series, it was really only Kakashi and the rest of Team Seven really fighting against Kage. If that was going to be the case with this series, you would essentially be excluding other main characters as well, and it'd only be Boruto, Kawaki, Naruto, and Sasuke. So it would kind of not make sense. Now, a lot of people aren't necessarily going to like this. And I even made a video about this a little bit earlier. People are going to have to be okay with the fact that they're probably going to be scaled up power ups that we're probably going to not necessarily like. So, like, hypothetically, the Mangekyo Sharingan might boost Sarada above a character like Itachi or Obito just because she has to scale up to Otsutsuki level characters. I even talked about it. Possibly an EMS is going to put her above the power of like a Madara, and people might not like it, but it's just the fact of the situation that she's gonna have to scale up to be up there with Boruto, Kawaki, Sasuke, and of course Naruto. Mitsuki as well. I think Mitsuki's probably gonna get a lot of his power-ups through scientific technology because he's already a synthetic human being. I think that right there is probably gonna be a lot more realistic. But I kind of compared it to Kale and Khalifa, if you guys know about Dragon Ball Super, when they turned Super Saiyan
Oh
or
my
Super
God.
Saiyan 2, they're essentially sparring with Super Saiyan gods, and everybody hated it.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be that much pronounced, mainly because I think that the Boruto writers seen and understood the criticisms that Dragon Ball Super had to go through. So I think they're probably going to augment that with possibly some scientific technology, more training. You could probably possibly say, hey, they got stronger because they were trained with god level characters, and of course they naturally got to their level. But I just think it had to be done, and I think that not a lot of people are going to like it. I personally don't mind it, but I think that a lot of people out there probably not necessarily going to like it. As long as Kawaki and Boruto are like number one and number two, I think that it's probably going to make the most sense. But for me, what I like, as long as Kawaki is number one, I'm good.
I'm fine with it. I've been saying this from the very beginning. I thought it was obvious. Anyone who said otherwise, they're absolutely incorrect, and I'm right about everything. We all know this to be true. No, it's just common sense. Like, the power scaling in part 1 is Otsutsuki. New gen characters are beyond like gods here. Part 2 is going to scale upwards as well. She is Sasuke's daughter, for God's sake. And we already have examples of this. There's history that informs us. Again, Shippuden, the war arc, Kakashi went from like barely can walk on water after a battle with Sasuke at the 5 Kage Summit to fighting like tailed beasts and Jinchuriki and warping out an entire 8 tails out of his Kamui dimension and literally talking about how he's going to warp away a whole ass 10 tails. So there is some context there. Of course, you got some healing, you know, some TLC. But that aside, obviously this is a thing that this particular writer does within this particular genre. They do it. It's common sense. Mitsuki, I've always said this. He has a part 2 power. There's obviously an Otsutsuki element at play with him, you know, splicing this or that through Orochimaru. I do believe he may be the ultimate life form. He has that potential to converge multiple Kekkei Genkai within him, but that's just theories. Obviously, I've talked about Dojutsu mutation on a multitude of occasions for many years now. And Susanoo compression, I've talked about that for many years now. All of these things are just old hat, common sense. There should have never been a questioning of this power scaling. But yeah.
How strong do you think Sarada is actually going to get in the power scaling thing that we got right now? Do you think she'll ever reach a character like Ishiki?
Yes. In fact, I think Ishiki's power level is going to be irrelevant by the time the series is over. And again, this is informed by the genre that we're in. I look at Raditz, and it took the strongest two baddest dudes on the planet, Piccolo and Goku, to handle this dude, and they beat him. But he's fodder compared to a Nappa, who took the entire Z Warriors to fight him. Who's fodder compared to a Vegeta, who folds these dudes. Who's fodder compared to like Pui Pui or whatever the dude's name is. Not Pui Pui. That's Busaka. But you get my point. Ginyu, Frieza, so on and so forth. It scales. So this is like common sense. Now there are instances where like maybe a Kaguya predates per lore a Madara Uchiha, but we get Madara first, and then so that logic to where a character who comes later is better than a character who was shown first. Well, Kaguya per the lore was there first, and she's stronger than Madara, but she wasn't revealed first. So there is some context there, but overall within this genre, it's just common sense. And again, I don't even know why this is like a point of contention. They're going to scale Sarada and Mitsuki up to go to Suki tier. And I've always said this, you can have a character within the same tier, but within that tier, they can be on a different level. Example.
But wait, I gotta cut you. You keep saying Otsutsuki tier. We need to get specifics because Urashiki and Ishiki are not the same. You think Sarada surpassing Baryon or Naruto? Talk to me.
These questions are loaded, bro.
They're absolutely loaded, but it's fun. Yes, I do. I think the power level. There's two angles to conceive this from. On one hand, you can say Ishiki Otsutsuki and Baryon Naruto are the highest heights that the series will ever see, right? And then we kind of scale down and then back up. And what I mean by that is like we got it first, the highest levels we got first, and then these characters need to work their way towards that. But them working their way towards that, wherever they start at that process, is the scale down, and then the back up is to where they try to work back towards Baryon and Ishiki's power level. That could be the case, which I'm fine with. Or it could be simply the case that the power is demonstrated. Like these guys are what, farmers, the Otsutsuki? Maybe these aren't even the most powerful Otsutsuki. Maybe these are like the low tiers, right? Like the low tier Saiyans. And from our perspective, they're the big bads because we don't have anything else to compare them to. But there's clearly some other entities out there at play because you can clearly become some Otsutsuki guy. Are we under the assumption that this is the first cat that's going to try this or attempt this? I highly doubt that. And of course, there's the Toneri dialogue on the moon. The gods will come here. He's not talking about Kinshiki, Momoshiki, Ishiki's there. He already probably doesn't know about him, but he's already on the planet, so he can't be talking about him, and he doesn't know about Urashiki. So who is he talking about? Stuff like that. There's the missing Otsutsuki at play that they're clearly setting up for either, if it's Ada or Damon, they're setting it up now, and will come to fruition in part 2, or maybe towards the end of part 1, which I would find to be a little bit of bad writing. But either way, like I said, there's two possibilities. You can go one way or the other. I'm fine with either one. I just personally think this is the shonen, so the scaling that we see now is not going to be like the be all end all.
Or I would say like maybe they take like a Sasuke Naruto route where they like they train to be above Kaguya level. Like they can go against a threat that's above Kaguya level. So they would scale themselves. They'll at least try to scale themselves above like a Momoshiki or something like that, if they're going to train to that level. So I hear what you're saying. Like if it's a threat that's like higher than Ishiki and Momoshiki and things of that nature, then yeah, they'll have a hard time. But I would see them, like I said, scratching the surface of what the next threat would be. In that sense, like how Naruto and Sasuke did with Momoshiki. Like they wasn't stronger than the Momoshiki, but together they gave them some type of trouble. So they can be an asset rather than a liability if it comes to that, where they like if they have some type of Otsutsuki war and they need their help, they need some other people to join in or whatever.
You're like rarely are like battles in this series 1v1 anyway. So like
Nope.
And I've always said this. I've never foreseen Sarada to be the 1v1 type of combatant. I've always seen her to be the one that works well within teams. I think that's primarily her role. Now, as it pertains to power, again, like FreeGame said, this is an excellent point. Taking the context of the actual series we're watching into consideration, yeah, it's probably never going to be an instance to where she's 1v1ing Otsutsuki.
Right.
But with that being said, again, power scaling is a thing. Characters that you often see within this genre that come first are often outclassed. Again, Nappa, Vegeta, Ginyu, so on and so forth. And yeah, I just don't know how. Like, you can't even quantify how much more powerful Ishiki is versus a Momoshiki in a way that makes sense to me outside of your feelings and portrayal, which to me removes a lot of the context that you would need to make an accurate assessment and analysis. To say nothing of like a Baryon mode Naruto. So like to me, and just to wrap this up, I'll let you guys go. The power scaling in this series is convoluted. It's a mess. It's messy. It's a problem. So for us to sit here and act like there's some official, definitive way to scale these characters is inaccurate, right? So we have to, one, create our own metrics, and two, try to use the best logical inferences that we can, feats, lore, history, so on and so forth, common sense, to kind of arrive at a conclusion while also factoring in the business decisions that these writers will make, the genre we're talking about, the show we're talking about, and all this has to culminate into some kind of accurate analysis. So yeah.
I mean, I think that's only logical. If they stay where they're at, then it's not going to fit the story. It's only logical for characters in a shonen or any other type of anime to get stronger over time. If they don't hit Otsutsuki level, I think they'll most likely like scratch the roof, or like they'll be touching Otsutsuki level threats. So them together will be a problem, kind of like how like a Sasuke and Naruto was a problem before they was even at Otsutsuki level threats. Them together working together. But as far as Mitsuki, we know Mitsuki has the potential. His Sage mode is stated to be one of the best Sage modes. Sarada, with her Sharingan, I don't know, maybe they can give her something different. Maybe like her Sharingan evolves in some type of way. Maybe they can give her that, or she has like the chakra control, or like people say the Byakugo seal. Um, give Sarada something. I like Sarada, so especially if her dad dies, she might get her Mangekyo, because she has all three Tomo in the manga. So if he dies in the manga, then her only progression from there would be the Mangekyo. It wouldn't be, her third Tomo.
It's not really a question of whether they'll scale to Otsutskis. I think that's obvious. I think what people should be concerned about is how they get to that point. And I think that's what I'm concerned about. And that's what I'd like to see. So it's not about where they get to. It's similar to like the time skip. We know what's gonna happen. It's just like how they get to that point. It's the same thing for like the power scaling. So for me specifically, I think Sarada, out of everybody else, she's the one that is really like, how does she get to that point? Mitsuki is like, they can go any route they want with Mitsuki. He's like some hybrid human
Yeah,
Otsutsuki. Like,
fast.
we don't know about Mitsuki. Like, they can do anything.
They could
Boruto
say
and
you too
Kawaki,
nutty.
exactly. Like, they can do anything with these characters. Sarada, on the other, she's just a regular ninja with Uchiha blood, So, like, Sarada, it's going to be hard to scale her up to, like, Otsutsuki level. So, I think if anything breaks the power scaling, it will be what they do with Sarada. So, I think with Sarada, I think what they can do to boost her up, I think, it might sound outlandish, but Madara's eyes are still there. They should still have Madara's eyes, right? Do
Oh, yeah.
something with it. Give her Madara's eyes. Like Madara said in the war, like maybe him and Sasuke are linked, maybe more than deeper than blood. Of course, they were talking about the reincarnation stuff, right? But yeah, like they could use Madara's eyes. Give her like Madara's eyes. Do some genetic enhancements. Give her some power ups. Like they can do a lot of things. I don't know how that scales her Otsutsuki level, but again, power cliffing, anything can happen. I think it just depends on how they get there, but they're obviously going to get there. I don't know about the Baryon mode thing. I think one or two things could happen. It could be that Ishiki, because the thing with Boruto, they started on a high, so it could go down the power scaling if that's what they want to do. So like when I say down, I mean like these characters, Ishiki and Naruto could be the peak, as in Baryon mode, peak in power level, right? And these characters will slowly scale up to their level, right? And then like, it caps off there. Maybe they go above it. So we don't know how it exactly is going to play out. But I personally think that people think I'm this Naruto purist. I think that's the word, purist. But yeah,
Mm.
I don't care. I want this series to go like Dragon Ball Z Super shit. I want to see these dudes in
Wow.
space flying and blowing up planets. That's what I want to see, bro. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
they want to go there, do some Otsutsuki fusions and blow up shit, take on the Otsutsuki planet or the above alien, the all-knowing father god Otsutsuki is, and they can do it, bro. I'm here for it. So yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I see what you mean. To be honest, Butter's ID, he kind of this super chat right here kind of like comes off like the heels of your Sarada quotes. My God, Butters, he says, which is most likely way for Sarada's eyes to evolve through Sasuke's eye, technology, etc., etc. And what crazy or dope EMS ability would y'all give her? In my personal opinion, I think the easiest way for her to actually upgrade her eyes is probably going to be the natural progression of the Uchiha. But the question is going to be, is that good enough to actually get her on the level of the Otsutsuki tiers? Now, as I said, you could possibly scale up the power ups to make EMS automatically have her surpass a character like Madara. But I think it'd work a lot better if they make the scientific technology similar to like the Hashirama cell, where it's like, hey, you put Hashirama cell on like a regular Uchiha that unlocks his Mangekyo Sharingan Obito. Now he's spamming Kamui all over the place, and now he's extremely overpowered. I think if you have technology essentially add technology into her Mangekyo Sharingan and actually boost their abilities, I think that right there could potentially scale her up to these Otsutsuki tiers. And I talked about this even in my video. I don't want to be like Mello right now, but shout out to my guy Mello. But I've essentially said hypothetically, if you have like the Susanoo, her Susanoo would be the strongest Susanoo of all time, but you modify that Susanoo where it's like it now has Damon's abilities where anything that touches it, it gets completely reflected. I think a lot of people like to say that Sarada could potentially have the actual Yada mirror abilities in her Susanoo, which could potentially scale up to Otsutsuki tier. Things such as that, modifying the already established Mangekyo Sharingan abilities to actually scale up to Otsutsuki, I think that right there is probably going to be the most realistic way to actually give her eyes that power boost. Let's keep it 1,000. She's like a half breed. She's not a full Uchiha member. So I think her just getting like an established Mangekyo Sharingan that's out of nowhere, like competing with the upper echelons, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily like it. And I think it just goes back to what Kidomaki said. Of course, they're going to get the powers, but how will they actually get there? That right there is going to be the most interesting part about it.
Sarada is a cool character, and I want her to be like a part of like the main cast of powerhouse characters in the series, right? I think that would be pretty cool. But we might get a case of Naruto versus Naruto and Sasuke in the original series again, and Sarada just like fades into the background. Like she might be there in battles, but more like the strategist and the backup, like how Sakura was, or maybe like a Neji or Hinata. Like she's gonna be like prominent, like politics wise, to be the Okage, but when it comes to like fighting, she's gonna be like a Sarda who's like running the hospital, and like, it's possible. So I'm saying like we can hope that she does scale power wise, but it might be the case that she doesn't. Then she just gets relegated to like running the village, which is what she wanted to do. So we shall see though. There are kids in the time skip, so I don't think like she should be running for a Kage. So she must be doing some ninja stuff. So I'm saying like maybe later on that's what happens, but power scaling wise, she probably just scales to like current Kawaki and Boruto, and they scale way higher in the time skip.
Holy. I mean, if I give my idea, I think we could potentially expect, in my personal opinion, I think peak Sarda could possibly get to Momoshiki Otsutsuki level, the fused Momoshiki Otsutsuki. And again, FreeGame brought up, well, not FreeGame, well, my guy Mello brought up a great point. He essentially said it could possibly be a certain situation where it's like Ishiki Otsutsuki and Baryon Naruto are the peak, and of course they all have to work to that point. I think that right there would probably make a lot of sense, especially since it is the Naruto series, and of course, if people want to like have that like idea that hey, Naruto was the peak, Naruto reached the heights and everything like that, that would be like a great, you feel me, a great symbol for a lot of the hardcore Naruto fans to look towards. Like, hey, Naruto was still that guy. Naruto was still the strongest character, and of course, Kawaki and everybody else, Kawaki, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki, they're all trying to work towards that point. I think if that's the case, then Sarada would probably reach fused Momoshiki level, and that right there would be a very good point. Like, let's hypothetically, if she is that level, right, she'd essentially be stronger than what Sasuke ever was. I think that Sasuke is probably going to get another power, probably not as strong as that, but I think a lot of people would probably like that. Her essentially being a good Otsutsuki tier character, to where if a fodder Otsutsuki member comes to Earth, Naruto don't gotta lift the finger, Boruto don't gotta lift the finger, Kawaki don't gotta lift the finger. Sarada could just handle that and be back home and do whatever else with her day. My words right now. Yeah.
Bro, if these Otsutsuki characters scale to base Momoshiki, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Sarada would like if you have like Darui and those Okage scaling somewhere near base Momoshiki level.
Oh no,
I think like
I,
definitely Sarada would like scale above any Otsutsuki that comes near like if they're on like base Momoshiki level, I think most of the new gen characters will probably scale above that Otsutsuki come time skip, in my honest opinion.